You pray, but are you doing it the way Jesus actually taught? So many people make this mistake, and they don't even realize it. Jesus gave us a warning. Don't make this mistake when talking to God. There's a powerful secret hidden in the way Jesus prayed. And once you discover it, everything changes. Peace, healing, strength, clarity. It all starts here. It's not about fancy words. It's about a real connection with the Creator. Jesus already showed you the way. You just might have never seen it like this before. Stick with me till the end, because this revelation could transform your prayer life forever. Jesus warned us, don't make this mistake when talking to God. Everyone's done this. You close your eyes, fold your hands, and start praying with that classic, Lord, help me with this, open that door, fix this problem, but hold on a second. Have you ever stopped to ask how Jesus started the prayer that changed the world? Before any requests, he said, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Matthew 6, verse 9. That shows us the power of prayer begins when we recognize who God is, not when we start listing our needs. It's not about rushing in for help. It's about pausing and worshiping. There's a powerful detail here that most people overlook. Hallowed means holy, set apart, worthy. Jesus wanted us to understand that God isn't some clerk behind a counter. He's the creator of the universe. And when that truth sinks in, something shifts inside you. Instead of racing to your list of wants, you begin your prayer saying, You are holy. You are my Father. You are my everything. That changes the entire atmosphere. Because the moment you begin connecting with God through prayer, it starts to feel different. Remember when Moses approached the burning bush? God told him, Take off your sandals, for the place you are standing is holy ground. Exodus 3, verse 5. It wasn't just about the dirt under his feet. It was about the posture of his heart. When we rush into prayer with a distracted or hurried spirit, we miss the sacredness of that moment. Prayer is where heaven touches earth, but first, we have to understand who we're talking to. That's why before you ask for anything, you surrender to his presence by recognizing him as your Father. And here's what's wild. When you start prayer by exalting who God is, something inside you settles. It's like your soul remembers, hey, he's bigger than my problem. That brings peace, a real peace. Suddenly, that heavy list of worries you were about to dump at his feet, it turns into praise. And that's when the miracle begins. But wait, Jesus didn't stop there. There's another step, one that has to do with surrendering your plans to his. And it just might change everything. Picture this. You're praying, and you already know exactly what you want God to do. Been there, right? But then Jesus drops this, Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Matthew 6, verse 10. Whoa, that hits different. Because right there, he invites us into a kind of prayer that transforms. A prayer that realigns the heart. A prayer that doesn't push our plans, but trusts his. That's one of the core transformative steps of prayer. You know who lived this out? Jesus himself in the Garden of Gethsemane. He knew the cross was coming, and still he prayed, Father, if it's possible, take this cup from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will. Matthew 26, verse 39. That's the most honest prayer there is. Not pretending you're fine, but trusting the one who's in control. Jesus showed us that strength through faith doesn't come from knowing the outcome, but from knowing the Father who holds it. Here's the hard truth. A lot of people get frustrated with prayer because they think God didn't answer. But what if he did just in his own way? What if that closed door was actually saving you from something worse? When we pray, Your kingdom come, what we're really saying is, God, reign in my story. And that's huge. That's where building a relationship with God becomes real. Not a deal-making transaction, but a daily surrender. That's why praying with surrender is so powerful. Because when your heart lines up with God's plan, even his no's start to feel like love. And that brings peace. The kind of peace that doesn't always make sense, but holds your heart steady. Philippians 4, verse 7. Praying like this is letting go of control and saying, Father, lead me. But don't stop here. This journey of prayer goes deeper. There's something Jesus taught about trusting God not with your whole future, but with your today. And that's up next. Everyone's at those moments, staring at tomorrow, wondering, will I make it? What if I don't have enough? But Jesus teaches us something completely countercultural. Give us this day our daily bread, Matthew 6, verse 11. It's like he's saying, child, trust me with today. This is one of the most transformative steps of prayer. Letting go of the fear of what's next and choosing to trust that God is in every detail, day by day. That's how we begin to experience spiritual growth through prayer. Remember the Israelites in the wilderness? God sent manna from heaven each morning, but with one condition. They could only collect enough for that day. If they hoarded it, it spoiled. Exodus 16, verses 19 to 20. Why? Because God was teaching trust. He wanted them to wake up each day knowing, God will provide for me again. That's the rhythm of faith. When you pray for daily prayer guidance, you're saying, Lord, help me believe that what you give me today is enough. But let's be real. We live in an anxious world, right? Everything's urgent. We want to control the week, the month, the whole year. But Jesus brings us back to what matters most. He calls us to live faith in real time. Do you have bread today? Then give thanks. That's where the power of prayer shows up, in the simplicity of knowing that heaven is still faithful even when your numbers don't add up. Praying for daily provision is like saying, I trust you more than I trust my spreadsheets. And over time, that trust changes how you see things. You stop seeing what's missing and start recognizing God's care. That grocery run that worked out, that money that came just in time, that friend who showed up when you needed them, it all becomes testimony. That's why Jesus didn't teach us to pray for stored up abundance, but for daily dependence. And speaking of powerful prayer, there's one ingredient that, if missing, blocks everything: forgiveness. Is there anything harder than forgiving someone who's truly hurt you? Only those who've been wounded know the weight it carries. But Jesus, in his divine wisdom, teaches us to pray like this: forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors, Matthew 6, verse 12. That hits deep. He's showing us that the forgiveness we receive from God is connected to the forgiveness we extend to others. And that makes releasing forgiveness one of the most challenging yet vital transformative steps of prayer. Jesus tells a chilling story in Matthew 18, verses 23 to 35 about a servant who was forgiven an unpayable debt, but refused to forgive someone who owed him much less. In the end, he lost everything. Jesus didn't tell that story just for drama. He was making a point. Holding on to resentment can close heaven's doors over your life. When we pray with bitterness, we block the flow of grace. But when we choose to forgive, even through pain, we open the way for prayer for peace and healing. Forgiving doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen, and doesn't mean saying what they did was okay. It means laying that weight down and handing your pain over to God. When you pray, Lord, help me let this go, what you're really saying is, I don't want to carry this anymore. And here's the beautiful part: God heals, He cleanses, He renews. You feel light again. That's the power of prayer when we use it to deal with the deepest wounds of the soul. And when your heart is clean, when your soul can finally breathe again, your prayers flow freely. You begin to experience a deeper relationship with God like never before. And here's the thing, that cleansing, it prepares you to face life with more strength. But Jesus knew this world would come with traps. That's why the next part of his prayer shows you how to ask for help before you fall into temptation. Because yes, overcoming challenges through prayer is absolutely possible, but have you ever had one of those days where it feels like everything is working against you, trying to pull you off track? It's in moments like these that Jesus teaches us to pray, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Matthew 6, verse 13. That prayer shows us that prayer isn't just about asking for blessings. It's about seeking spiritual protection. And no, that's not an exaggeration. The battle is real and visible, but real. When we pray like this, we're saying, God, without you, I can't make it. This is yet another of the transformative steps of prayer. Joseph, in Genesis 39, is a powerful example. When Potiphar's wife tempted him, he could have given in. But what did he do? He ran. That's right, he didn't argue, didn't flirt with danger. He ran because he knew he'd fall if he tried to handle it alone. Joseph believed that overcoming challenges through prayer and bold action was possible. He didn't make deals with temptation. He chose obedience. And that's exactly what this part of the Lord's Prayer is about, acknowledging our weakness and asking for strength before we fall. But temptation doesn't always show up looking like trouble. Sometimes it comes dressed as opportunity, as a just this once or no one will ever know. And that's where the danger lies. That's why praying for deliverance is urgent. It's like installing a spiritual alarm system in your heart. You wouldn't wait for a thief to break in before locking the door, right? Same with evil. Prayer becomes your shield, your defense. This is where the power of prayer shines, keeping you from what could destroy you. And the more you ask God for direction in these moments, the sharper your discernment gets. You begin to sense what's right and what's a trap. It strengthens you. It shapes your spirit. And here's the truth. The more you depend on God, the more you'll experience what it means to walk guided by His Spirit. But that journey only works when your heart is sincere. And Jesus doesn't beat around the bush about that. Because in the end, beautiful words mean nothing if they're not coming from a real place. Some people think prayer only counts if it's loud, eloquent, or in front of a crowd. But Jesus flips that idea on its head when He says, when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Matthew 6, verse 6. That changes everything. He's telling us the value of prayer isn't in the volume or the spotlight. It's in the intimacy. When you hide away with God, you begin to build a real relationship with Him, one that no public performance can match. Take Daniel, for example, in Daniel 6, verse 10. Even when it was illegal to pray, he went to his room, opened his windows toward Jerusalem, and kept praying 3 times a day. And here's the beautiful part. He wasn't doing it to be seen. He was just staying connected to God quietly, faithfully. That kind of silent devotion has incredible power, because when no one else sees, God does. It's in that quiet corner of your room that heaven starts to move. That's where you begin to experience faith-based breakthroughs. In a world where everything is filmed, posted, and shared, praying in secret feels almost countercultural, right? But that's exactly where you find peace. It's the space where you get to be fully yourself. No masks, no performance. Just you and God. That's authentic Christian prayer in its purest form. It's in those private moments that your soul finds refuge, your mind finds calm, and your faith finds fresh strength to face whatever comes. And the more you pray in secret, the more you realize how deeply you need Him. It's like opening your heart to a Father who already knows you better than you know yourself. And you know what? That's where the miracles begin, in that simplicity. But Jesus isn't done yet. He has something even deeper to teach us about prayer. Because in the end, God doesn't listen to polished performances. He listens to hearts that are broken and real. Some people think you need heavenly vocabulary to pray, like God only listens to fancy words or poetic phrases. But Jesus completely shatters that idea when He says, and when you pray, do not keep on babbling like the pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Matthew 6, verse 7. Jesus is crystal clear. God isn't looking for a performance. He wants truth. Effective prayer doesn't come from your lips. It rises up from deep within your soul. That's how we start unlocking the power of prayer. Remember the story of Hannah? In 1 Samuel 1 verses 10 to 13, she was so heartbroken. She prayed without making a sound. Her lips moved, but her heart was crying out. Eli the priest thought she was drunk, but God understood every unspoken word. And the most beautiful part? He answered, because when your heart is honest, even silence can reach heaven. That's proof that prayer for stress and anxiety doesn't have to sound impressive. It just has to be real. Prayer isn't a show. It's a conversation with a Father who already knows what's in your heart, but still wants to hear it from you. And the more you pray with authenticity, the stronger your faith becomes. Talking to God the way you talk to a close friend doesn't take away the reverence. It deepens it. This is one of the purest ways of connecting with God through prayer, because it shows you trust Him enough to be yourself, unfiltered, unpolished, completely known. And you know what happens when you pray like that? Everything changes, because when your heart speaks, heaven listens. Even when words fail, the Spirit intercedes with deep, wordless groans. Romans 8 verse 26. Praying with honesty means saying, God, this is all I've got today. Help me with what I can't even say. And those kinds of prayers, oh, they shake the unseen world. But there's more, because Jesus also taught us that real prayer doesn't just need honesty, it needs faith. And that takes us to the next step, believing that God hears, even when all you hear is silence. Have you ever prayed and then immediately wondered, did God actually hear that? You're not alone. That thought is more common than you think. But Jesus doesn't beat around the bush. He says, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Mark 11, verse 24. That means faith doesn't come after the answer, it comes before. Praying with faith is like mailing a letter and trusting it will reach its destination, even if you never see the route. That's how we activate the power of prayer with expectation. One powerful example is in Matthew 9, verses 20 to 22. A woman who had suffered from bleeding for 12 years believed that if she could just touch the edge of Jesus' garment, she'd be healed. And she was. Jesus looked at her and said, "Your faith has made you well." Wow. That shows us that sometimes faith is all you have, and it's all you need. When prayer is filled with belief, something shifts. This is one of the deepest secrets in the teachings of Jesus about prayer. Faith is the invisible bridge between your prayer and God's answer. It's not about what you see, it's about what you believe. Praying with faith is saying, I can't see it yet, but I know you're working. Hebrews 11 verse 1 nails it. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When we pray like that, with confidence, we start living a life of faith-based breakthroughs instead of fear or doubt. And here's the best part. Your faith doesn't have to be huge. Jesus said even faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. Matthew 17 verse 20. That's more than enough. So next time you go to pray, even if you feel weak, remember, if there's faith, God hears you. And even if the answer takes time, it's already in motion. Now, speaking of faith-filled prayer, you'll be amazed at what Jesus teaches next about keeping things simple, direct, and crystal clear when talking to God. Have you ever gotten stuck in prayer thinking, what should I even say now? The truth is, a lot of people feel like they need to give God a full explanation, like he doesn't already know what's going on. But listen to what Jesus says in Matthew 6, verse 8. Your Father knows what you need before you ask him. That changes everything. God isn't waiting for a perfect speech. He's looking for a simple heart that trusts. And that right there is one of the keys to praying effectively with freedom. Take Bartimaeus, the blind man. When Jesus asked him what he wanted, he didn't overthink it. He simply said, Lord, I want to see. Mark 10, verse 51. And that's exactly what happened. He saw no long intro, no fancy words, just a genuine cry from the heart. That's where we learn that Christian prayer practices don't need to be complicated. Simplicity touches God's heart in ways that formality never will. Praying with clarity means trusting that the Father understands even what you haven't been able to put into words yet. You know what's most freeing about all this? It means you get to be yourself. If you're tired, say so. If you're scared, talk about it. God's not asking for a filtered version of you. He wants the real you. And praying simply helps break the idea that you can only talk to God when you're spiritually strong. Truth is, it's in your weakest moments that he most wants to hear from you. That's why this kind of honest connection is one of the greatest secrets to spiritual growth through prayer. And when you get used to talking to God in a real and simple way, prayer becomes part of your rhythm, your everyday life, like an ongoing conversation, and that prepares your heart for a whole new level of spiritual maturity. Because once you start praying with clarity, you also begin praying with gratitude, patience, and wisdom. And Jesus has powerful lessons about that. After all, there's supernatural power hidden in those who know how to wait in faith and give thanks before the answer ever arrives. There's a powerful secret in prayer that most people overlook, thanking God before the answer comes. That's right. When Jesus was about to multiply the loaves and fish, he gave thanks before the miracle even happened. Matthew 14, verse 19. That teaches us something crucial. Prayer for peace and healing also flows through gratitude. When you say thank you for what hasn't arrived yet, you're showing you trust the one who promised. Gratitude is faith in motion, and that kind of faith touches God in a special way. Patience, on the other hand, is the proof that you believe in God's timing. Remember Abraham and Sarah? God promised them a child, but they waited years, and still, God kept his word. Praying with patience means saying, Lord, I believe you're working, even when I can't see it yet. That's what it looks like to surrender to God's will with maturity. Because waiting isn't a waste of time when you're waiting on the one who never fails. The promise may take a while, but it always comes. And wisdom? That's a game changer. James 1 verse 5 says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God." Simple, right? But how often do we pray just asking for rescue and forget to ask for direction? Wisdom is what keeps you steady when life tries to throw you off balance. It's one of the transformative steps of prayer that helps you make decisions that honor God. That's why praying for wisdom is like turning on a flashlight in the middle of a dark path. When you combine gratitude, patience, and wisdom, your prayer life becomes whole. It's not just asking, it's a mature conversation, a declaration of trust and surrender. And at that level, you realize the answer isn't just what God gives you, it's who you become while you wait. If this video touched your heart, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more people discover the power of prayer and the teachings of Jesus on prayer. And tell me in the comments, how do you usually pray? I'd love to hear your experience. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Every week we post new content to help you build a deeper relationship with God. If this video spoke to you, there's another one linked in the description and on the card that dives even deeper into this topic. Click over there next to keep growing in faith and discovering more of the transformative steps of prayer. And remember, when we pray the way Jesus taught us, life changes from inside out.